Welcome to Design Deep Dive. I'm Travis Magram, and in this series I'll be going in-depth on board game design choices and their effect on the game's players. I'm going to start by discussing Raw Deal, a collectible card game about professional wrestling that was in print from 2000 through 2007, and occasionally comparing that with the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game that was in print at that same time. For this first video I wanted to explain the basics of both games so you'll have a frame of reference for the deeper topics I'll be going over in the later videos. In Raw Deal, each player has a superstar card representing their wrestler or a group of wrestlers. Your superstar card lists your starting hand size, your superstar value, and an ability that you will get to use throughout the game. Your superstar will determine special rules on other cards that you can pack, that is, cards that can be included in your decks. Your deck can contain three types of cards. Maneuvers, which are the attacks made against your opponent. Actions, which represent non-attack effects such as setting up an attack or taunting the opponent. And reversals, which can stop maneuvers and actions played by your opponent. Many cards in the game were hybrid. For example, Don't Try This at Home has one effect when played as an action, and a different effect when played as a reversal. At the start of the game, each player reveals their superstar card, and draws cards equal to their starting hand size. The player with the higher superstar value goes first. On your turn, draw a card from your arsenal. You may play a maneuver or action with fortitude less than or equal to your fortitude rating. You cannot play reversals on your own turn. Your fortitude rating is the total amount of printed damage on cards that you have successfully played, with your successfully played cards going into your ring area. Fortitude is not spent to play the cards, it is a threshold to determine if a card can be played. Since you have 0 damage on cards in your ring area at the start of the game, you'll only be able to play 0 fortitude cards until you successfully play a card with printed damage. To play a card, announce it, and resolve any when played effects. Your opponent will have the opportunity to reverse the card from their hand, backlash deck, or possibly other areas. Most reversals are limited to only reversing certain types of maneuvers or actions, while others look at different criteria, such as elbow to the face reversing any type of maneuver of 7 damage or less. If your opponent reverses your card is discarded and has no effect. The opponent's reversal goes into your opponent's ring area, and does its effect, usually ending your turn, and deals its damage to you. If your card is not reversed, it goes into your ring area, does its effect, and then deals its damage. Your opponent takes damage by overturning cards from the top of their deck to their discard pile, until they have either overturned cards equal to the maneuver's damage, or overturned an applicable reversal that they have enough fortitude for. The overturned reversal will stop the remaining damage and end the opponent's turn, but it does not go into their ring area, as it was not successfully played, and it doesn't do any additional effects, such as damage. You win the game by removing all of the cards from your opponent's arsenal. The basic rules for the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game are very similar. In both games, you have a card representing your character. You play attacks that your opponent can reverse. Damage moves cards from the opponent's deck to their discard pile. And you win if your opponent has no cards remaining in their deck. Characters in Dragon Ball Z have power levels on the right side of their card, a power-up rating indicating how many power levels they gain at the start of their turn, and an ability, usually an attack that can be used once per round. A strong element of the Dragon Ball Z series is the power level, a numerical representation of how physically strong a character is. Starter decks came with a plastic scouter to indicate your current power level out of the list of power levels on your card. This game only has 2 different types of attacks, compared to Raw Deal's 5 different types. However, they are handled very differently. Energy attacks deal their damage directly to the opponent's deck, but your character must go down 2 power levels in order to perform them. Physical attacks compare your current power level to your opponent's, and you consult a chart to determine how much damage you deal based upon the difference in your power. Damage from physical attacks does not go straight to the deck, it instead reduces your opponent's power level. If your opponent's power level is at 0 and they need to take additional physical damage, those additional damage are taken as cards from the deck. Cards in Dragon Ball Z could give you a stat called Anger, tracked on the sword included in the starter decks. When you reach 5 Anger, your character progresses to their next level, with higher power levels and a new ability. This resets your Anger to 0. Another way you can win the game is by leveling up to your character's highest level. At the start of your turn, after drawing, you may play non-combat cards representing training, locations, allies, and Dragon Balls. There's no direct analog for this in the Raw Deal card game. If you collect all 7 Dragon Balls, that is the third and final way to win the game. Because of the importance of Dragon Balls in both the show and the game, they have a number of special rules, including going back into your deck when they would otherwise be discarded, not being the legal targets for card effects, including searching unless they are specifically stated, and when you do a large attack, you can steal one of your opponent's Dragon Balls and immediately perform its effect. In Dragon Ball Z, the cards in the hand are meant to be played. Every card is equally playable at the beginning of the game as it is at the end of the game, having no cost like mana in Magic or levels of fortitude required like Raw Deal. On your turn, you draw 3 cards instead of most card games, 1. However, you also have to discard down to 1 card in hand at the end of your turn. If you choose to enter combat, your opponent will immediately draw 3 cards so that they can defend themselves and fight back. You and your opponent will alternate attacking and defending until both of you pass. With hand sizes that replenished quickly, few restrictions on playing cards, and back and forth attacking play, every turn was a new opportunity, and having one bad turn would not punish you in the way that it might in Raw Deal or Magic the Gathering. On the flip side, it also meant that it was difficult to have any long-term planning. Combos across multiple cards were far more rare, and the relative power of cards played throughout the game needed to stay the same throughout, never building to bigger, more powerful cards. Now that you know the basics of how to play Raw Deal and the DBZ CCG, I hope you'll join me for the next design deep dive, the Backlash deck and the Sensei deck.